Okay, so let's dive in. The big question we're looking at today, based on all the material you sent over, is Fury Gold Mines. Is it potentially being overlooked by the market?
That's the core question, yeah. And something really jumps out from the sources right away.
Which is?
Agnico Eagle, a major gold producer, right? They just put, what was it, see, $4.3 million into Fury, a private placement.
And here's a kicker. They paid a premium. 64 cents Canadian per share. That definitely got my attention.
Exactly. When a huge player like Agnico Eagle does that, invests in a junior explorer, and pays more than the market price,
Yeah.
well, it's a pretty strong signal.
It tells you they see something specific, something valuable there.
For sure. So that's our mission today, digging into these sources you provided. We need to unpack why Agnico made this move. What's so compelling about Fury?
Right. What do they see in the projects, the strategy, and, the big picture question, given this strategic nod from Agnico, is Fury actually undervalued right now?
We'll try to piece it together. Look at Agnico's thinking. Fury's main projects, they've got a few key ones. Their financials, the valuation picture, and what the company itself sees coming down the pike as catalysts, and, of course, the risks involved.
Okay, great. Let's start right there with Agnico.
Yeah.
Why them? Why now?
Yeah.
And why pay extra? What was the convincing factor?
Well, the sources point pretty clearly to the geology, specifically the potential they saw at Fury's Committee Bay project. That's up in Nunavut.
Committee Bay. Okay. So were they always keen on it? Or did something change?
It sounds like they might have had some reservations before, actually, but a key moment seems to have been a presentation.
A presentation?
Yeah, by Fury's Senior VP of Exploration, Brian Atkinson. He laid out the geological potential, the upside he saw at Committee Bay, and according to the sources, that presentation really convinced Agnico's technical team, their senior geos.
So it wasn't just a management decision. The geologists signed off.
They were convinced it was, and I think the quote was, definitely worth the investment. So it wasn't just, a financial flyer. It was based on their technical review of Fury's work, the targets.
That's serious validation. So what's Agnico's vision for Committee Bay then? What do they hope to find?
They seem pretty ambitious about it. The sources mention phrases like potential for big bonanza hits or even a big gorilla discovery.
Big gorilla. Okay, that sounds significant.
It does. They're excited to speed up exploration there, and they feel they can bring their own Arctic experience to bear. Agnico knows how to operate up north, and they apparently see the Arctic becoming more and more important for finding new mineral deposits.
That makes sense. They have Hope Bay nearby, don't they? Does Committee Bay fit into their bigger strategy somehow?
Absolutely. It slots right into their project pipeline. See, as Agnico advances its own big projects towards becoming mines, they need a steady stream of new discoveries coming up behind them.
They need feeder projects for the future.
Exactly. Junior companies like Fury are critical for that. And with Hope Bay moving along, Committee Bay fits right into their pipeline, as one source put it. Agnico wants to grow, maybe even get to producing 2 million ounces a year, and you just can't do that without constantly finding more gold.
Got it. Okay, geology, strategic fit. I also saw mentions of operational efficiency. Was that part of the appeal?
Oh, yeah, definitely highlighted, especially at Committee Bay. Agnico was apparently quite impressed with how efficiently Fury works up there. They noted Fury can drill for under $700 a meter.
$700?
Yeah.
Per meter. That sounds incredibly low, especially for the Arctic.
It is. Significantly lower. Like maybe half what others might pay, the sources mention, $1,100 to $1,200 a meter as more typical.
How do they manage that?
It comes down to infrastructure that's already there, left over from over $100 million spent historically by previous companies. So Fury has a big camp, they have equipment, they even own their own drill rigs up there.
So they inherited a huge head start.
Pretty much. Agnico apparently noted how Fury was really set up already in that tough environment. And that translates directly into lower costs, faster progress. It's a big advantage.
Okay, that makes sense. A major likes seeing that kind of efficiency. Now, flipping it around, what was Fury hoping to get out of this deal, besides the cash?
Validation. Fury's CEO, Tim Clark, was pretty explicit about that in the source material. They wanted Agnico's investment to validate the potential they saw in their own assets.
Like getting a stamp of approval.
Exactly. Getting a major, like Agnico, known for being a, quote, tough customer that digs into the details, to invest at a premium, that sends a strong message to the market.
And presumably Agnico liked what they saw in Fury's targeting work.
Yeah, the confidence came from the exploration targets Fury developed by crunching all that historical data. Plus, Tim Clark apparently has long-standing relationships at Agnico, and Fury has a reputation for, being professional and spend your money wisely. Agnico is also known to be pretty active investing in juniors, looking for these pipeline fillers.
And did this validation extend to the share price itself? I mean, Agnico paid a premium.
It seems so. Tim Clark believes Fury's stock is basically undervalued, and the sources suggest Agnico agreed with that view. Clark even called the 64-cent investment price the quote was a friggin' bargain.
Huh. Okay, can't get much clearer than that. And this investment isn't just symbolic, right? It's real money for exploration.
Absolutely. Of the C$4.3 million total, C$3.9 million is specifically earmarked to fully fund Fury's 2025 exploration program at Committee Bay.
That's huge for a junior. Takes the funding pressure off for that project for the year.
It's a major de-risking step for that program, definitely.
Okay, so Agnico's bought in. They like the geology, the efficiency, they see value. But Committee Bay is just one part of Fury. Let's broaden out. What else is in their portfolio?
Right. So Committee Bay, Nunavut, that's got a resource already defined. Over 500,000 ounces indicated at a really nice grade, 7.85 grams per ton gold, plus another 720,000 ounces inferred, also high grade at 7.64 grams per ton. That's from the 2023 estimate.
And just quickly for listeners, grams per ton, or GT, is how much gold is in the rock. Anything over 5 grams is generally considered pretty high grade. And indicated and inferred are just categories showing how confident the geologists are in those numbers.
Exactly. High grade is definitely a theme here. And remember, Committee Bay has all that infrastructure from the $100 million plus spent before. Then, moving south into Quebec, they have two main projects. First is Eau Claire.
Eau Claire, okay. What's the story there?
Updated resource estimate just last year, 2024. It's got a measured and indicated of 1.16 million ounces at 5.64 granite gold, and another 723,000 ounces inferred at 4.13 G2.
Add that up. That's nearly 1.9 million ounces total. That's pretty substantial.
It is. And management seems to think they have a clear path to push that past the 2 million ounce mark.
Is that 2 million ounce number significant?
Yeah, they mentioned that crossing that threshold often gets a lot more attention from bigger companies looking for projects to potentially develop. They also say Eau Claire has the highest grade and the most ounces right in its immediate neighborhood in Quebec.
So it stands out locally. Is the deposit sort of defined? Or is there still room to grow it?
Oh, lots of room, according to the sources. It's apparently open pretty much everywhere, east-west. There's a big gap in the middle that hasn't been drilled much, and there are these hinges on the west side that look promising for extensions.
And location-wise, is it accessible?
Relatively, yeah. There's a winter road, or you can drive all the way around. Potential is there for it to maybe supply ore to another nearby mill, or maybe down the road support its own operation.
What have they been doing there lately?
Well, they recently added about 200,000 ounces in what's called a maiden resource. That's the first formal estimate for a specific zone, this one called the Percival Serendipity Trend.
Percival Serendipity, where'd that come from?
They found an 18-gram rock sample there back in 2018, which is really high grade. That got them looking closer. They also made a new discovery at Serendipity itself and have ID'd something like 16 more targets to drill on the property.
And they own it outright now.
Yep. Just consolidated it in February 2024. Bought the remaining almost 50% stake. So 100% ownership now.
Okay, so Eau Claire, big, high grade, almost at that 2 million ounce level, fully owned, and lots of blue sky exploration potential left. What's the other Quebec project?
That one's called Éléonore South, and the name is a big clue.
South of Éléonore, the big mine.
Exactly. It's right next door to Newmont's large operating Éléonore gold mine. The key feature here is a big golden till anomaly that's gold traces in the surface soil about 3 kilometers by 2 kilometers. And the analysis suggests the geology, the structures, the geochemistry. It looks similar to what hosts the big deposit at the Éléonore mine itself.
Wow. Being right next door with similar geology? That sounds like it could be really significant if they hit something.
Huge potential. The sources actually used the word transformational to describe what a discovery there could mean for Fury. They did a big geochemistry program recently that gave them some encouraging results.
Are they drilling there?
As of the sources we looked at, they had plans for about 15 drill holes, maybe even started them. Their Q1 2025 exploration spending was up quite a bit, and a lot of that was attributed to a big drill program. 4,000 to 6,000 meters, specifically targeting Éléonore South.
So they're putting serious money into chasing that potential home run right beside a major mine. Okay. Any other projects worth mentioning?
Yeah, one more key one, Sakami, also in Quebec. This came into the portfolio when Fury acquired Quebec Precious Metals, or QPM.
Right, the QPM acquisition. What's Sakami like?
It's described as being sort of near the resource stage, but with more exploration upside, too. Access is pretty decent, near a paved highway, hydro lines run nearby, good infrastructure in the area, and it's in a First Nations community they're familiar with.
Is there an official resource there yet?
Not yet, no. There's been historical drilling that outlines some gold mineralization, but it hasn't been formally calculated into a resource estimate that meets current standards.
So what's the plan there?
A big goal for their 2025 program is to actually publish a brand new maiden resource for Sakami. Alongside that, they'll be looking for extensions, trying to make it bigger, and exploring for new zones on the property. Management sees it fitting really well into their overall pipeline of projects.
Okay, let's recap the portfolio then. You've got Committee Bay in Nunavut, high-grade infrastructure, Agnico's backing it. That Eau Claire in Quebec, almost 2 million ounces, high-grade, 100% owned, still open. Then Eleanor South, right next to a mine, chasing a potential game changer. And now Sakami, aiming for its first resource soon. That's quite a lineup for a junior explorer.
It is a pretty diverse and potentially high-impact set of assets, which brings us right back to that valuation question we started with.
Right. With all this going on, Agnico stepping in, the resources they have, how does the market value Fury? CEO Tim Clark thinks it's basically undervalued.
Yeah, he points to what he calls a disconnect and sort of fragmented valuations for smaller resource companies generally, where the value of the stuff they actually own, the assets in the ground, seems way higher than what the stock market is saying the whole company is worth.
He mentioned the gold price, didn't he?
He did. He highlighted this huge gap between gold soaring, like up $1,000 since he joined Fury when the stock was way higher, like 92 cents, versus Fury's stock price recently, which was down around 53 cents at one point, he mentioned. And that's despite Fury improving things, financing, assets, making discoveries, growing resources.
That must be frustrating for management, seeing that disconnect. What are the actual market cap numbers the sources mentioned?
They varied a bit depending on the source and timing, but roughly in the CAD $80 million to maybe $112 million range recently.
Okay, $80 to $112 million CAD. How did that stack up against the assets? You mentioned over 3.1 million ounces of gold resources just between Committee Bay and Eau Claire.
Exactly. And Clark's argument, echoed by an interviewer in one source, is that when you consider those 3.1 million ounces plus their big stake in Dolly Varden Silver, the market cap just looks really skewed. It doesn't seem to reflect the value, especially considering things like the $100 and plus sunk into Committee Bay historically and the infrastructure advantage there.
Okay, let's unpack that Dolly Varden stake. You said it's significant.
Very significant. Fury owns a substantial chunk of Dolly Varden Silver Core, which has its own high-grade silver project out in BC.
How much is that stake worth?
It fluctuates with Dolly Varden's share price, obviously, but the sources cited values ranging from $50 million up to almost $70 million at various points. More recently, figures like $44.9 million in late May 25 or $53 million CAD at the end of March 25 are mentioned.
Wow. So at times, the value of just their investment in another company could be more than half of Fury's entire market cap.
Potentially, yeah. It's a really material asset for them. As of March 31st, 2025, they owned 16.05% of Dolly Varden. That dropped slightly to 14.5% after that date, but it's still around 11.8 million shares. They also get board seats at Dolly Varden based on their ownership level.
How does that show up on Fury's books? Is it marked to market every day?
No, it's accounted for as an investment in associate, which is accounting speak, but basically the value on their balance sheet isn't the live market price. It's based more on the initial cost plus adjustments. Although if the market value stayed persistently way below their carrying value, they would have to take an impairment charge.
Impairment. I think I saw something about that related to their actual mining properties too.
Yes, good point. The sources noted that Fury's market cap has often been below the carrying value or book value of its mineral properties on its balance sheet.
So the stock market value is less than what the assets are technically listed for on their own books.
In recent years, yes. And because of accounting rules, that's actually forced Fury to write down the value of those properties on their books, take impairment charges to bring them more in line with the lower market capitalization.
That's kind of backwards, isn't it? The market's low valuation is forcing the book value down rather than the book value supporting a higher market price.
It definitely highlights that perception gap we talked about. But on the positive side of the financials, the sources do point out Fury holds more cash than debt. Their cash-to-debt ratio is really strong, like over 330%.
So low debt.
Very low debt for an explorer. And their liquid assets cover their short-term bills. So near-term financial position looks pretty solid, especially now with that Agnico cash dedicated to the Committee Bay work. As of March 31st, they had about $2.3 million CAD in unrestricted cash and a working capital surplus of over $5.5 million.
Okay, so despite the market cap maybe not reflecting asset value, their balance sheet seems relatively healthy for this stage. What are analysts saying? Are they seeing this potential value?
Well, H.C. Wainwright, one firm mentioned, maintained a buy rating and actually raised their price target after some positive exploration news. The targets mentioned in the sources are, well, quite a bit higher than recent trading levels, like $1.85, even $2 compared to a 0 to 48 price mentioned at one point.
$2 compared to, say, 50 or 60 cents. That's a massive implied upside.
It certainly suggests those analysts believe there's significant room for the stock to run based on their assessment of the assets and potential.
But we have to balance this, right? This is still exploration. It's inherently risky. What are the key risks we need to keep in mind here?
Absolutely crucial. Fury is an exploration company, period. They don't generate revenue, they burn cash to explore, they aren't profitable, and they don't expect to be in the near future.
So traditional metrics, like PE ratio, just don't apply or look bad.
Right. Some purely metric-based analyses might rate them underperform or unattractive because they lose money. And funding is always a factor for explorers.
Even with the Agnico money.
The Agnico money is huge for Committee Bay in 2025, but there's no guarantee they won't need to raise more capital down the road for other projects or future years. They reported a loss of almost $3 million in Q1 2025.
Anything else on the risk side?
Management did disclose a material weakness in internal controls. It related to reviewing complex accounting things, like gains or losses on investments like Dolly Varden. They have a plan to fix it, but it's something they flagged. And fundamentally, as Fury themselves state in their filings, exploration is high risk. There's never a guarantee that drilling will find something economic.
Okay, so definitely a high risk, high reward type of situation. Significant potential upside, strong assets, a major partner validating things, a big equity stake, but balanced against the realities of cash burn, funding needs, and the basic uncertainty of hitting a discovery.
That sums up the picture painted by the sources pretty well.
Let's touch quickly on what's next. Drilling plans, catalysts, what should people be watching for?
Well, the 2025 Committee Bay program is locked and funded thanks to Agnico. That's key. They also had that drilling happening or planned at Eleanor South, chasing that big target next to the mine.
And Sakami.
Big goal for 2025 is getting that maiden resource out for Sakami. Plus, ongoing work at Eau Claire, drilling those 16-plus targets, trying to push it over that 2 million ounce mark.
And we talk about the Arctic challenges. Fury being set up there is a real plus.
Huge plus. The cost and difficulty of working up north can be immense. Having the camp, the gear, the owned drills already in place because of past spending, that makes our exploration dollars go further. Agnico clearly recognized that.
Beyond drill results, what other catalysts could move the needle for Fury?
The main ones mentioned are obviously positive drill results, new discoveries, expanding known zones, especially hitting that 2 million ounce target at Eau Claire. The Sakami maiden resource will be a milestone. Then there's potential corporate activity.
M&A.
Yeah, the sources suggest consolidation is likely in the junior space. A project like Eau Claire, with its grade and size, could be attractive to companies needing mill feed or just wanting to add quality ounces. Hitting those analyst price targets would also signify a shift in market perception. And just having Agnico involved increases visibility.
Got it. And one last thing the sources touched on was sustainability, community relations.
Yeah, Fury emphasizes their commitment there. They talk about 4 pillars: environment and cultural heritage protection, community development, economic opportunities, and cultural intelligence, basically working respectfully with Indigenous partners.
Any specifics mentioned?
Sponsorships for Indigenous initiatives, training, good relationships with the Kitikmeot Inuit Association up north, and the East Main Cree in Quebec. They're also Big B certified, which is a sustainability standard, and they highlighted board diversity, female, and Indigenous representation.
So trying to integrate that responsible approach into their work.
That's the picture from the sources, yeah.
Okay, this has been a really thorough look at Fury gold mines, sparked by that Agnico investment. We've covered why Agnico might be interested, the projects, the financials, the undervaluation argument, the risks.
And the potential catalysts ahead, from drilling to M&A.
So for you listening, weaving all this together, here's maybe the final thought to chew on. You've got a major gold producer, Agnico Eagle, putting strategic money in at a premium, clearly seeing geological value. You've got a portfolio of promising assets, plus that big Dolly Varden stake. How do you weigh that validation and asset base against Fury's current market cap and the undeniable inherent risks of backing an exploration company?
It really encapsulates the challenge and opportunity in evaluating junior miners, doesn't it?
It really does. And just a reminder, everything we discussed today came directly from that package of source materials you provided.
Absolutely. And we have to include the necessary disclaimer. This conversation was based only on those sources. It is not investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell anything. Mineral exploration is extremely high risk.
There's no guarantee of success. For detailed risks, forward-looking statements, all the critical details, you really need to read the company's official filings, their AIF, MD&A, annual reports.
Please do your own homework and due diligence.
Always the best advice.